These are the parts of the Bendix unit on the 1977 Triumph Spitfire. I've always been led to believe that when the engine fails to start because the starter just spins and the Bendix fails to engage, that it's because the Bendix was dirty. And I took this one apart, and it really wasn't very dirty. What I did notice was that there are some, let's see if I can focus that. There were, you see these scratches on this large spring, and there are a couple little chips off the end of it, some scratches on both sides. So it's very worn. And I noticed when trying to turn it that there was also a raised portion on this clip or the split washer, and that it would catch, preventing the engagement unit from spinning or from twisting down the shaft. So I've cleaned it, and I've filed down the sharp edges, and I'm going to polish out the scratches here, and we'll see what happens with it. So now I'm going to reassemble the Bendix on this starter for the 77 Triumph. I've got all my parts laid out here. I've lubricated the shaft very well with ordinary motor oil. And the first thing we do is we assemble this part. There we go. Sometimes it catches a little bit when you're sliding it on. You just kind of have to wiggle it until it gets on there. And then the next piece is our little worm gear. And that goes right inside just like that. See how it spins quite freely. I'm going to add a little bit of extra oil to that just to make sure it's well lubed. I don't want to overdo it. Okay, so that's good. Now, we put our little clip on, and then our spring. And the spring goes right on down. Should go right down in there. If I'm doing this right. And then our castellated nut. And it's having a little trouble getting past the hole that's in here in the side for the, what do we call that, the cotter pin, but it is what it is. So we'll put this down and get it back together. Okay, now I've got the Bendix all put back together. You can see I've got the cotter pin put back in. I tightened that nut just as far as it would go, and it would not go to the next slot in the castellated nut. So I went back about less than 1/8 of a turn to put the cotter pin in. So that is as tight as it can possibly be. I noticed that before I tightened it, when the Bendix was all the way up, it would go up and then back down a little bit, and it doesn't do that now that it's tightened down. So just to show you how the Bendix works, when the motor spins, initially the Bendix unit, its own inertia or momentum enables it to stay still because the motor's accelerating more rapidly, and it spins down, engages the flywheel here with the gear. Once the engine starts, it spins the Bendix a little bit faster than the motor can go, and it starts it on its way back up. You turn off the starter motor, and it stays back in place. Pretty simple design. And with any luck, since this turns so freely, there's no catching. I detected a little catching before I took it apart and filed off the rough edges, but it had been catching just a little bit up at the top. There is no catching now. It just wants to slide very freely, and it's been lubricated properly. We'll see how that works. So the starter is now in place. You can see it way down in there. It's a lot easier to put back in than it was to get out. And let's give it a shot, see if it'll start up. Still up on the jack stands. There we go. Trying. So every time I try to engage it, the Bendix engaged. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Yeah, it's doing pretty well. Now the next project is to replace this original radiator, 1-core copper, with a 2-core aluminum radiator, and replace that electric fan that I got from a Fiat with 2 very nice narrow electric fans. Alright, he's running.